Hello everyone, welcome back to the FatFish channel, and welcome to Grail Knight, the greatest warriors of men by FatFish. This is going to be a video on Warhammer Fantasy, specifically on Brettonia and its Grail Knights. And if you are new to Warhammer Fantasy, maybe this will interest you and you want to see more, leave a comment. And if you aren't interested in Warhammer Fantasy, let me know. Or if you are a Warhammer Fantasy fan and just want me to make more videos, or vice versa, you don't want me to make more of these videos, you want me to focus more on I don't know, Lisa or something, let me know. Just comment on this video with your thoughts on the video and so on. Anyway, 1. What are Grail Knights? Grail Knights are knights who have reached the top of Brettonian knighthood and drank from the Grail of Lady Lake. They are the greatest warriors of men, not blessed by chaos gods. The knightly quests of Brettonia go from a knights errant, who is a starting off knight. Every noble starts that way. Knight of the Realm, which is most of them, questing knight, and then if the questing knight succeeds, the Grail Knight. These are a specific ranking system separate from the feudal system. Grail Knights are living saints, not just blessed warriors, they are actual saints. And they are very, very skilled warriors. And the Grail Knights are pinnacles of chivalry and view its code with holy reverence. Because, surprise, surprise, the Lady of the Lake actually views the chivalric codes as a holy text. So it's literally a holy text for them to reveal as reverence. So 2, how do you become a Grail Knight? Brettonian knighthood comes in stages, and this is the core of everything they do. How their armies work, how their nobles interact, and generally society is all based around its knightly quest system. All nobles will start as a knights errant, and this is unique about Brettonia because they have squires, but squires are peasants who are not able to become knights outside of rare circumstances. Instead, they all start off as knights errant from the get-go, because nobles in Brettonia are too proud to be knights. Not to be knights, to be squires, sorry. And knights errant will typically get an errantry quest, which is quite small, like clearing out a small area of forest or taking over a small castle and some peasants, and then when they have that, they'll be permitted to rule it and become knight of the realm of it. This is because this also helps Brettonia expand. So Brettonian knights will go out on their errantry quest, take small hamlets from the border regions, not the empire, because the empire is a bit too rigid to let them get away with that, but Estalia, which is a split into a bunch of city-states, is quite easy. By the way, Estalia is just a southern region based on Spain, which is divided into different city-states that are constantly feuding. But also, Brettonians will go on errantry quests to clear out land inside of Brettonia, like clearing out forests or so on, controlled by beastmen. That way, they're constantly driving away beastmen and growing the realm while clearing out its forests, which in Warhammer, deforestation isn't just a good thing, it is the most one of the most noble things you can do, because beastmen are in every single forest in here. And that's not a joke, they're everywhere. So deforestation isn't just clearing out trees, it's a war. So pretty intense deforestation stuff going on there. There's also errantry wars, which is when a knight of the realm, or not knight of the realm, the king will declare a war on a place. And every knight who attends, who's an errant, will become a knight of the realm if they survive. So a lot of people will attend these, and these are typically in crusades, or whenever the king needs as many soldiers as possible for a big war. And most knights in Brettonia are knights of the realm. Knights of the realm are just standard knights. They are ones who own land, or they either own land or they're a part of a larger lord's retinue and have a nice house in the palace or cities in. So knights of the realm, we think of as knights. They do all the standard knight stuff. They protect their territory. Each knight of the realm is expected to protect their castle, and so on, and all surrounding territories from beastmen and so on by themselves. And most knights will just not stop being knights of the realm. They'll stay it their whole life and die pretty happily being a knight of the realm. Questing knights are when these knights abandon all of their territory and lands and seek the Holy Grail, which is the sacred item of their god, the Lady of the Lake. The trials you have to undergo are terrible. They have very strict rules. They cannot stay in a place for more than 2 nights. They're constantly on the move. They cannot use the lance, the typical weapon of chivalry. Many of them have other restrictions. Like you can't carry X amount of things. You can't work with X people, and some will take particular vows depending on their, location. So the questing vow list very strict and very long. Questing knights have to seek across the world in the will of the Lady Lake. Many and most will stay in Brettonia, because Brettonia is massive anyway, and just do their quest entirely there. But some will travel across the world. Many of them end up in Lustria, which is basically the New World. If instead of Native Americans, there was lizard people, and they were very, very strong. They will go all the way across the ocean for their errant for their quest for the Holy Grail, or go all the way to Kislev in the north, which is next to the Chaos Waste. So they will go basically anywhere as long as the Lady of the Lake wills it. And most of them will die, despite the fact that these questing knights are very skilled, given that knights in Brettonia are already deemed somewhat. Some imperial scholars, I think, in lore actually consider them a different race than other people because of how much larger they are from decades and centuries of selective breeding that they've been doing to make the best sons. So the average knight of Brettonia is like 6'3" in a medieval setting. So they're fucking huge, extremely skilled, unmatched, and yet most of them will die because that's just how dangerous a quest is to go for the Holy Grail. And if you make it to the end of this, you will sup from the Holy Grail and become a living saint. I don't mean just a blessed warrior, like actual sainthood. Each of their names is recorded and people will pray to them like you would a saint. So these are very important people. And another thing with the knight system of Brettonia is that Brettonian knighthood is separate from its feudal system. You can be a knight of the realm in charge of a dukedom, and your boss, the guy you're in charge of, could be a Grail Knight. And you would still be his boss, but that Grail Knight would have authority over you as a superior knight, and if he spoke to you in war council, you should respect him and be considered very rude or even sinful to deny his advice or ignore what he tells you. One exception is that questing knights can't be feudal leaders, but knights of the realm and others have to respect them anyway and view them kind of as seniors, and knights errant can't be feudal leaders because they aren't allowed to own lands. So, there's some stuff like that. And also, a Grail Knight would maybe listen to a Knight of the Realm, but they would never listen to a Knights Errant at all. And it kind of depends. So, like, the higher you are, the less you listen to people lower than you. A questing knight to a Grail Knight is seen as a younger brother, but a Knight of the Realm might be seen as, inexperienced or not worth listening to. So 3, what do Grail Knights do? Absolutely anything. Well, obviously not everything, but they do a lot and a lot of things. So a Grail Knight may become a protector of a chapel, church, and they're not spelled churchy, I just messed it on the PowerPoint, and cathedrals of the Lady. They serve the role as priests. Larger ones have multiple Grail Knights. Now, most of these Grail Knights are Grail Hermits, which are ones who have aged, which they age very slowly, but they still age, to the point they can't fight as well, so they often just protect and become priests of these chapels. And this is one of the main reasons why Brettonia is so zealous, because unlike the rest of the Warhammer world, while they may see priests who can call on miracles and some prayers, the average Brettonian is able to actually see, if they choose to, a sermon by a saint. So imagine if you could go to a church right now and Padre Pio would just be there preaching. And there was like hundreds of these, because there are a lot more Grail Knights than you may assume, even if most of them are old. So it's a big reason behind Brettonian faith, because they can literally see a saint speak and hold their hand semi-regularly. Now, obviously not all priests are going to be, Grail Knights, but all of them are knights, because the Brettonian faith requires knights as their priests, which is pretty cool. So, a lot of them are in this priestly role. Others become lords of their territory and just ruled them before they ruled them. This is what they did before they became Grail Knights. This notably includes the king and all the duke, except for save Alberic or Bordelou, who worships the sea god Man. This is a very interesting part of Brettonian lore, because it's actually a fancy explanation for a political system. Absolute monarchy is in charge of Brettonia. The king has literally no restrictions. He could just say something and it would be true immediately. And this would cause a lot of corruption, but because he's a Grail Knight, he has to be a holy warrior who's been blessed and, done all these trials, so he's literally unable to be corrupt to most extent. So it's a fantasy, they use a fantasy explanation to why a system exists, which I think is really cool. Other examples include how vampire kingdoms don't have succession lines because the vampire just doesn't die, and so on and so forth. I really like when settings do that, when they include a more fantastical explanation for a mundane system. Other Grail Knights will just wander the realm, seeking battle with monsters or other foul creatures. They will attend armies when they're needed, so a Grail Knight will go into the forest and fight beastmen and other monsters as long as he survives. And he will just keep doing this until an army is called, and then he'll attend that army as a champion. And finally, there are Brettonians who just serve the monarch or the dukes, typically the monarch, as direct knights, as in they don't have land, but they still serve them as like a knight inside their barracks and so on. They act as champions when on the ground, being the best horsemen. They will often lead any cavalry charge, or they will form up units together to become really unstoppable. And if they're available, they will have a Pegasus, which is a flying horse, or a Hippogriff, which is like a tiny griffin, but like it's still massive, but it's not a griffin-sized, to fly above the battlefield. In these units, they have Grail Guardians. Grail Guardians guard the Fey Enchantress, which is basically the right-hand lady of the Brettonian god, Lady of the Lake. And her opposite is the Green Knight, who I forgot to mention, but he basically tests every Grail Knight before they become a Grail Knight, and he's the male counterpart to the Fey Enchantress. And the Fey Enchantress is guarded by Grail Knights, who are the best of the Grail Knights, who personally do her bidding. So Grail Guardians are just like even better than regular Grail Knights, which seems kind of superfluous, but it's a war game, so obviously you need an even stronger version of the super cool unit to be in charge of it. You know how it is. And finally, we move on to the most awesome, crazy, beautiful part of storytelling, power scaling. I love power scaling. It's great. Never read your books, only read power scaling. So what can Grail Knights do? So Grail Knights are peerless warriors, and they have some of the best equipment and skills that are basically never matched, or if they are matched, they're barely matched by other warriors in the world. They're only surpassed by very powerful lore characters. So Grail Knights often wear the full plate suits that Brettonians have, and these are said to be much better and higher quality than the best of the empires we'll see in a story I say later. So Brettonia is in the 1300s, 100 Years' War era, and they typically wear chainmail with very few plates. So overall, they aren't very advanced, but when they do make good stuff that's on the level of the Empire, it's for the Grail Knights. And these suits are very, very powerful, and they're all blessed by the Lady. When I say blessed by the Lady, I don't mean this figuratively. I mean, on occasion, they will simply glow with light and become immune to attack from demonic forces or other things, because a gimmick of the Grail Knights is they can become as strong as they really need to be as long as the Lady helps them. So they're very much tools of her and can be weakened or grown depending on what serves the Lady's will. But overall, if your equipment is blessed by the Lady, you can achieve a lot of successful things. Grail Knights have superhuman skills, and they're able to do crazy things like match the Sword Masters of Hoeth, which is insane given the Sword Masters of Hoeth are literally 500 years old who have spent their entire lives training to fight other elves. Yet Grail Knights, who only live to around 300 at best, are able to match them in swordsmanship. This is because they have access to not only the illustrious history of Brettonian swordsmanship, but because they have the Grail Vows, which are secretive, martial techniques which are only known to them, and are one of the primary reasons why they're so strong, because these techniques are literally, I think, written by the Green Knight, who is basically an archangel of their god. So these are pretty powerful techniques. Not to mention what they come with their body, which is superhumanly durable, strong. They never tire, they age much slower than normal people, and they have additional boons of the Lady. Now, a regular guy can have a blessed sword of the Lady, or be blessed by the Lady, but Grail Knights are always blessed by the Lady, and they get a ton of them. A Grail Knight can gain things depending on what they need. Some of them have skills like one Grail Knight who simply walked in front of a vampire and the vampire started burning because he was just that holy. Or a Grail Knight like Leon and Leoncoeur, the blessed king of Brettonia, bled gold and had his wounds close immediately when he was struck. So, as I said, if the Lady of the Lake wills it, a Grail Knight can become much stronger than their peers, seemingly out of nowhere. Grail Knights can match, as stated by lore, Chaos Chosen to Blood Knight, which is where I generally put the average Grail Knight as equal to a Chaos Chosen and a Blood Knight. But I'm going to explain what this means to people who have no idea what any of those things are. So, I'm going to tell you a story about Kurt Helborg. Kurt Helborg is the champion of the Reiksguard, which is the personal knights of the Empire's Emperor, which is the biggest, most powerful nation in the old world. This guy has a rune fang, which is created by the best dwarven smiths ever, who also created the most powerful weapon ever, Galhar Miraz. This is like one of the most powerful swords ever made. He has armor made by the Emperor's best smiths, this Emperor is also one of the richest, most powerful emperors in the history. So this is the best armor you can imagine. And this guy fights a border skirmish with the Brettonians. They send a random, no name, well, he has a name in the story, but he never appears again, Viscount, who I don't remember the name exactly of, just to fight him. Not even a Grail Guardian. This guy wears armor who immediately on sight, even though it's centuries old, is significantly superior to this guy's armor, even though he is the Grand Master of the most wealthy and powerful Knights Order, of the most wealthy and powerful Emperor, of the most wealthy and powerful Empire. Yet this guy's armor is just so much better, the other guy's immediately able to notice it, even though he has one eye, which doesn't really affect his perception, but still. Then, this guy fights the best warrior of the Empire. He said that Kurt Helborg is the greatest swordsman of the Empire, with the best sword, and he wins so hard that this guy has like in his mind, because it's a book about him, so obviously you're reading from his perspective, he starts freaking out because he has no idea how the other guy is doing so many attacks at the same time, and he doesn't even injure him once, despite the fact his sword has done things like, sever an orc war boss into sections or kill demons and cut them in half. He doesn't even get a single hit off the guy, and he loses terribly. And this isn't even like a super Grail Knight. This is like a regular Grail Knight, not even a Grail Guardian. So this is what a random one can do. Another one, again, not even a Grail Guardian or an elite Grail Knight, not even like a Grail Paladin, just grabbed the Black Orc, which is like 9 feet tall, picked him up, and broke his back on his knee out of nowhere. So these are very powerful people. And some people will say they're weak. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to those people, because they're very cool. And there's obviously a lot more crazy things I could talk about, like the one that just melts anything that's evil if it stands near him. But I don't want to talk about that for too long. So just know, very powerful warriors. They can do a lot of things. And if they really need to, the Lady of the Lake can boost them to unimaginable levels on a dime. So overall, very strong people. Goodbye. Did this go on for too long? Did I talk too much about power scaling? Or did you like everything about this video because I'm the most handsome and beautiful YouTuber to ever exist? Please tell me in the comments. And my next video, if no one comments, because none of you ever comment on my videos, except for things like, wow, that's cool, which I appreciate, but please comment more constructive stuff, is going to be on the opposites of these guys, Chaos Chosen. So I'll give you a Chaos video for those evil fellows in my YouTube section. See you later.